Hello everyone, my name is Sick and welcome to a special video on map orientation. For this video I will be using a game called ArmA Free, and this video is not supposed to be specifically about ArmA Free. I'm just using it as a showcase for something that you can use in real life. So this is just going to be this is going to be the program that I use to show you the basic principles of orienteering that you can use in real life, but it also works in ArmA Free. So I'm going to assume that you know absolutely nothing at all about map orienteering, and I'm going to explain everything to you top to bottom. And we are going to do that by discussing several little things, and we're going to start off with what it is that you can actually see on a map. Okay, and we're going to be talking about the grid, we're going to be talking about the coordinates, and we're going to be talking about the compass, and we're going to be talking about triangulation. And first off, let's start with map features and basic orientation. Alright, so we have before us a map, and you can see a lot of different things here. And if you've never looked at the map before, this is quite specific, and you see a lot of information here. You might not exactly know what's going on. So to start things off, the first thing you might notice is that everything is divided up into boxes, these little grids of square boxes. And these are what you use to find your coordinates with. And you can see that we have a lot of boxes on the screen, and at the bottom of each box, if you follow this along, you see a figure or a number. For example, at the bottom of this one it says 035. It's a little bit hard to read, but it's there. Alright, in the same fashion, on the horizontal line over here, or on the vertical line, going up and down like this, we have 064. Right? And these are part of the coordinates that you can use, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So what else is there that you can see? Well, you can see roads, as denoted by this big orange line. This is a road that I'm standing on. This little blue dot, that's actually me in the game. But yeah, I'm standing on a road. I can see several buildings, which are these gray boxes. You see bits of forest as well. You can even see some specific trees, though in real life specific trees will probably never be noted on a map. But you can see forested areas, like this area over here. You can see clearly this is a forest. Everything that's white is an open field or an open area, and everything that's green will be a forest. Similarly, you can see that over here are mountains. You have little specific icons for that. And there are various other things that you might be able to notice. For example, on this map you can actually see hedges or fences as well. So these things over here, these thin little lines, these are fences belonging to a farm. But you can also see more specific things. For example, let's have a look over here, and I'm going to zoom back in. You can see there is a hospital, or what looks like a church symbol. I think this one is a church actually, and then there's probably a hospital somewhere on the map as well. Let's have a look at one of the bigger cities. Georgetown should have one. You can see this is probably a hospital then, I guess, and this is a gas station. Various things that you can see, and this one already gets quite complex. You know, there's a lot of buildings, a lot of mountains or hills that are being shown over here. But a few of them are very specific, like this one and like the fuel station. And there's other things as well that you can find. There's probably an airport somewhere that for example, there's an airfield over here, the Tuvanaka Air Base. And so there's a lot of very specific buildings that you might be able to see. But it doesn't just stop there. So for example, we have this road over here, which is a main road. But you also have a more brown line over here, and this one denotes a path. Something like this is a hard road, and this is more like a soft road, like a dirt track. So we can walk over here. This is my character. Or actually, you can see one off in the distance there. So let me just have a look for the scope, and you can see there's a little brown trail going off in the distance. And you can actually see this on the map. It is this trail right here that we are looking at. Right, other things as well. You can see some of them are a little bit thinner. So as you can see, this is a little bit of a bigger trail. This is a thinner trail. And these are all things that you can see in real life as well. Though in real life maps, they're probably not signified with this specific color, or like at least not for the trails or side roads, but every map will have an agenda to the side, which shows you specifically what each icon and what kind of road every line represents. Okay, so we don't have that in the game. In the game, you just kind of have to figure it out for yourself that, oh, this orange road is a hard road and the brown road is a soft road. But in real life, on the map, you can see different, all the different roads that you can find on the map are represented off to the side of the map. And it will tell you specifically what kind of road it should be. Alright, and that's true for many things. On the other hand, there are other lines you can see as well. Apart from the grid, apart from the roads, there are other lines that you can see. And for example, these are all the little lines I'm talking about. These little squiggly lines that are all over the place. And these ones denote height. And this is the same thing in real life as well. Usually in real life, it will show you a little figure like this, like the 47 over here. It will usually show you that on the line itself and not in the middle of the line. But in the game, it actually shows you like in the little area in between the lines. This is 47. For example, this is 49, 46, 40 by the looks of it, 37. And all of these little squiggly lines, they denote height. So all of these lines, they are a different height from each other. And as you might guess, 37 is a lower height than the 47 over here. Which means that this is probably a little dip and this is a hill. And we can have a look at that as well. So for example, we have 42 over here, 47 over there. And they should be off to my right. As you can see, like there's a little... I'm looking in this direction. So if I look over to my right in just a second, we will probably look up at a hill. And as you can see, that's very true. This is like the little road is on the squiggly line. Let's see. This over here should be denoted somewhere, probably close by. But if this is 42, we might say that this is probably, I don't know, 40 or something like that. Something like that. It should be denoted somewhere. Or like 37 if you follow this along. And yeah, this is probably 37. This is 42. This is the top of the hill that we can see, but if we walk up onto the hill here, we should be able to see another bit of hill over the rise. So let's just have a look to make sure that is actually the case. Yeah, so we're on top of this little hill. It goes up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, etc., etc. And all of these things that are denoted on the map, you can use to orient yourself and find your own position. Because of course we are in a game right now, and the game shows us exactly where we are. In real life, of course, that is not really the case. You just kind of have to figure things out for yourself. And all of these little items, they help you to do that. Alright, so these are all very important to figure out. But next up, let's talk about the grid numbers. So, as I talked about earlier, in these square boxes, you have the different figures over here. So we have 035 and we have 064. And these belong to a coordinate. And in this case, for ArmA, it is a 6-figure coordinate. Okay, and we can actually make that a lot bigger as well, because these squares are pretty big. And I might want to show you to a specific building in a grid. For example, let's have a look. Do we see a grid that has multiple buildings in it? Yeah, right. So we have a grid over here that has multiple buildings in it. And I might want to denote a specific building in this grid. But these basic figures don't really show us. These basic figures, well, if I have for example, let's pop down a marker over here to say we have a coordinate that says 034, and let's have a look. I think that's 066. This is a basic coordinate, and with this coordinate you can find the grid that is being referenced. So the one I just wrote down, it starts off with 034 here, and then we have 066 over there. And if you follow 034 up, like so, up until you reach 066, you arrive at this little intersection over here. And let me just draw that on the map. So we arrived at this little intersection, okay? And that leaves you with four grids to choose from. And in map orienteering, it is always the case that you use the one on the top right. Okay, so if I use this coordinate right here, I arrive at this grid, and we always use the top right, which means I am talking about this specific square. Okay, but now, of course, where in the square do you need to be? You could need to be at any specific building over here. And to do that, we need a coordinate that is a little bit more specific than the one we wrote down below. And to do that, usually in real life, there is a special tool that you can use to actually figure out the different lengths of these squares, okay? And I'm just going to have to draw this manually on the map, and I'm going to have to kind of guesstimate it, okay? So I'm just going to draw around 10 lines around here. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we have 10 little sections over here. We need the same over there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so we have 10 areas, okay? And say that I want to go to this specific building. What I need to do now is I'm going to use this little grid. I'm going to draw it up like so. And I'm going to be on this height as well. This is where it intersects, okay? So let's have a look. It's 1, 2, 3, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I'm going to write this, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, and in a coordinate that would look like 0, 3, 4, 5, 0, 6, 6, 6. Alright. This would be the coordinate of this specific building, because every coordinate, and I'm going to show you how the coordinate works, okay? So let's I'm going to go out into the ocean a little bit and draw out these figures so I can actually show you how these things should be split up. So I'm going to use the 8-figure coordinate, because the 8-figure coordinate is actually the most common one in real life. Usually if you work with a coordinate, you end up with an 8-figure coordinate. And the way it's split up is like so. Let's write this down. So we have 0, 3, 4. Well, it's a very ugly 4, but it's a 4. 5, 0, 6, 6, 6. Okay, so we have our 8-figure coordinate, okay? We need to split it up in several parts. And the way we do that is we split it down the middle, like so. And then we have 2 halves. And these halves, they correspond to the horizontal line and the vertical lines. Okay? But this is too much, because we have a 0, 3, 4, we have a 0, 3, 4 down here. We have a 0, 6, 6 up here. But we have extra numbers that we use. All right. So the way we need to split it up next is we're going to have a split here and a split there. And usually in real life it's a little bit different, because usually it will just say 6, 8, or instead, here we have 3 figures on the one line. Usually it's 2 figures on the one line, and it will be more, the split will come in between the 0, or in between the 3 and the 4, and between the first 2 6s over here. And that means that you have 2 figures, or yeah, two number figures on each divide, basically. All right, and the way we always write these down is the first half of, like, we have several halves, right? So we have a big half, which is like all of these 4 numbers together, and we have a small half, which is this little part and this little part. These are 2 small halves within the big half. All right, so the first big half is always the horizontal line. All right, so let me write it down. Horizontal. This part is always vertical. Okay, and that is true for both parts of this, or both of the small halves of the bigger half of the coordinate. Okay. Another way to remember this is for horizontal and going vertical. The way I was taught it was that in order to go into a building or go, okay, I have to figure out how to say this in English for a moment. I have to say usually the coordinate works like this. You go into a house, you go up the stairs. But before you go up the stairs, you have to be inside the house, of course. So the first part will always be going into the house, like so. You know, go into well, this is going to be a very poorly drawn house, but that's a house. And then we can go up the stairs, like so, I guess, you know. And it works out in real life, because let's see, 034, which is this first half, 066 is the second half, which leads to this little intersection, right? Then we take the top right corner, as always, and in this coordinate, 0345, 0666, we would end up with this specific building, right? Does that make any sense? I hope it does. I do hope it does. Because coordinates can come in various different sizes, you know? Like the very basic coordinate that people would use in ArmA would be this top one, the 6-figure coordinates, because that leads you to a specific grid. And usually people will just say, I see enemies in grid 034, 066, and people will just kind of find them on their own. But if you need people to go to a specific building, it's not good enough. We're going to need a one that's that's a little bit more detailed, basically, and that's the 8-figure one. In real life, you can go much higher, but for most basic orienteering things, you end up with an 8-figure coordinate, which is then, of course, divided up as I described up above. And I really do hope that makes any sense at all. Alright, so next up would be the compass, actually. And I have a little compass over here, and it's pretty basic, okay? If I double click it, it becomes smaller or bigger in ArmA. It's not very clear, like so, but if I jump out of the map into the real world, and I bring up the map like so, or not the map, but the compass, like so, you can see it's a lot more detailed, and now it actually turns around. So if I want to face north, I use the little red line as my facing, and I go look at the north, which is 0 degrees. And in real life, you can just kind of look at this and say, okay, I'm looking at enemies at 40 degrees, for example. You know, it's very quick and easy. You can just bring up the compass. You can say, I'm looking at something specific at 120 degrees, or you can just say south, southeast, things like that. Or you can come with a very specific direction. And on the map in real life, you would use the compass to actually determine where it is you're looking at. Okay. So the way that works is, let me think about that for a second. So of course, in real life, the top of the map is always going to be the north, you know. But you can turn the map in any direction that you want, basically. So you could have the north side of the map facing south, and that makes orienteering very hard. In the game, the map will always be oriented towards the north, so it is a little bit easier that way than in real life. But usually in real life, if you need to orientate your map towards the north, you just take your compass, you put it on the map, and you have the needle point to the north, and then you turn the map around until the red line lines up with the north, basically, and that is when you face true north. And from there it makes orienteering a lot easier. And that is, I hope that makes sense, because if not, please ask me in the comments and I will try to elaborate a little bit more. Yeah, next up will be triangulation. And triangulation is what you do where it's where you use the compass to find your position on the map using like usually 3 different directions. Right, and I'm going to see if I can find a nice place on the map to show you this in action. Alright, so I found a pretty good place to show you not coordinate triangulation, but triangulation of your position on the map using your compass. Alright, so I am on a hilltop, or not a hilltop, I'm on a mountaintop, right? And we can see a lot of different things that we can use to orient ourselves with. For example, over to my right, we have a cliff. And cliffs can be found on the map using the height lines, because, let's see, I'm going to turn off map texture for a moment. And as always, like this is kind of cheating because I can see where I am on the map. In real life, I would not know specifically where I am, you know, that's the thing. Usually you don't know where you are specifically, but you can kind of, you know where you are in a broad sense. So you kind of know, like, oh, I started hiking in Lakatoro today, I went into the hills to the north, and now I'm somewhere in this area, but I don't know exactly where in this area I am, right? And you want to figure that out. So one of the things that you can do that with is by using these height lines. For example, if I zoom in over here, or maybe, let's see, maybe this one is a little bit clearer. That's pretty much the same. I guess, you know what? No, I'm going to go over here because I did see something over here. You can see a lot of these height lines are very close together, and that means, as you might have guessed already, it means that you can see a cliff over here in this direction. And over here the height lines are a little bit further apart, so that means this is probably the top of the hill. And all of this is basically a very steep hill or a very steep mountainside going down until you come closer and closer to the valley, where these height lines will be further and further apart again. And you can see, well, the height lines are a little bit further apart and it's kind of straight, and that's where the road is, and that makes a lot of sense, right? And same over here, this is probably a more or less even field, but the more you go to the north, the more you reach more mountains, and you go up and up and up and up until you reach another mountain over here, where the sight lines or the height lines get very close together again. Right, so that is one thing that you can use for orienteering. And as before, always, you can use the buildings as well. So we have a little, what looks like a farming community down there. That's something that you can find on the map as well. Way off to the north there, I think it is. Let's see, yeah, that's up to the north. You can see that little round building, which I think is like a radar site or something like that. That is a very specific building that you can use for orienteering. Then off to the left, we have a pretty sizable town and what looks like a factory. If my character stops wiping his brow for a second there, let's lift up our weapon. You can see that's a factory, and that is also something that you can definitely use for orienteering purposes. At the same time, there's another hill or a mountaintop. That's something that you can use for orienteering, and off behind myself there's a small little community of a few houses as well. And all of these things, they can be used together to orientate yourself. And the way you do that is by looking at the map, and you take your compass, or we make it as big as it can be. I really wish this could be made bigger, but I guess that's what real life is for. And then you can kind of start to figure out what it is that you're looking at. Okay, so the scenario is this: we started off in Lakatoro, we went north into the wilderness for a hike. We ended up onto a mountaintop, but we're not exactly sure where we are. We could be, well, we know we're on a mountaintop. Mountaintops are denoted by these little triangular icons there. But I could be on this one, I could be on that one. I'm not entirely sure, and we need to figure this thing out. Okay, so the way that works is you find your specific points of reference. For example, the mountain top off to our right. You know, that's let's see. We have a mountaintop. It is at 100 degrees from where we are. So we jump into the map, and we're just going to use like okay, we're somewhere in this area. We're not entirely sure, but if we are somewhere around here and we look off into the direction of 100 degrees, we follow this along. And then eventually you'll see something that will look like a mountain. For example, let's see, 100 degrees, it's a little bit more than 90. And that will be, for example, I think this mountain over here, right? We have a mountaintop over here. That's more than likely what we're looking at right now. Or actually, this would probably be that mountaintop because it's the highest point. So let's use that. It's 110 degrees. And we kind of have to figure it out. We can use this red line though, and I think, you know, if I was somewhere over in this square, you know, we're somewhere over in this square. We started here. We're somewhere over in this big area, and I think what we're looking at is this point. So I'm going to take my compass, and I'm going to draw a line in 110 degrees from this point. Okay, and I'm going to draw it as straight as I can, which is probably not very straight. This is the direction that we are looking in. Alright, so now we need to drag this line out and continue it on in this direction where we think we are. Alright, so I'm going to draw this out as straight as I can. Like I said, it's not very straight, but let's draw it like so. And And that's our first part of triangulation. Alright, so let's take another mark, like a very remarkable point. For example, that building over there, which is at 10 degrees from where we are. Alright, this will be a little bit easier to see maybe. So we will have to go north, right? It's practically north, so we go up north, north, north as far as we can go and see if we can find anything that specifically tells us there's kind of like a radar station or something like that. And I think it's probably comms alpha, right? So let's see, we are somewhere over in this big area. We'll go practically north. We have comms alpha, we have comms bravo, but that's way off to the right, and I don't think that's what it's going to be. So we can drag our compass over here in this big area, and 10 degrees it kind of comes out with, yeah, comms alpha. That works. So comms alpha, we're going to be drawing a line like so, more or less in 10 degrees, you know, sort of. And then we already have an intersection, and this is then probably, now if you draw this very correctly, because, you know, usually in real life you have a ruler or something like that that you can put on the map, or something that's very straight that you can use to draw a very straight line. Right now I'm just kind of go, you know, as I try to go, but you can see it's very squiggly going up and down a little bit, so this is not very accurate, but in real life you could make a much more accurate cross-reference over here. But then this might be pretty close to where we are, but it's usually not enough. What you kind of want to do is find out if you can have a third point of reference, and we do. We have a factory at, let's see, basically 315 degrees by the looks of it. So let's have a look at the map, and it is it's northwest from our position, from this area as well. So northwest, we go look, and oh yeah, look, there's a Tanoa sugar company over there. All right, so 110 degrees, or not 110 degrees. How much was this again? 315, right? So 315 degrees. I'm going to put the compass right next to it, and I'm going to start drawing a line in this kind of basic idea as well. And so now we have a third intersection, and again, it's very rough and it's very raw. It's not very accurate with my in-game map drawing skills. But as you can see, all of these intersections are definitely a lot closer to this mountaintop than this mountaintop over here. And that means I successfully determined my location, which is this point right there. Right? And that is probably the hardest part to figure out. You know, it's just the triangulation, like using various different points to find your own location on the map. And I hope that's a little bit clearer to everybody now. That does conclude the last part of my little tutorial on map reading. I hope it was clear to you. If it's not, again, feel free to ask any questions that you want in the comments below. If not, please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And I'll see you guys for whatever video I do next.